My lovely, lovely, wonderful people, a pleasant morning to you. So, I began a part one. I began a part one of this article that I saw. It was done in 2022, but it's very much relevant today. And it is entitled The Chokehold of Income Inequality in Jamaica. So, I'm going to start back here. I read a part of it in the first post that I made, but I'm going to start back here nonetheless. It says these entrenched systems, in my view, are undoubtedly stifling for the average Jamaican with little hope or expectations for their life. Most are trapped in a chokehold of institutionalized inequity, a broken system designed to keep them invisible and powerless to get ahead. As a result, their daily lives are a constant hustle without enough to fill a prescription, access a mortgage for home ownership, go to school, stay safe, and feed themselves. For the thousands of children growing up poor in Jamaica, it's hard to argue that they will ever have the means to beat the odds on their own. And remember, this article was written in 2022, so at the time, Dr. Nigel Clark would have been the Minister of Finance. So it says last year, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark announced that Jamaica's poverty rate went down to 11%. I remember that. Or that 330,000 Jamaicans are poor. That's a lot of people. That's a lot. That's too many. On a per capita basis, Jamaica ranked 146 in the world. So poverty is relative. And we should expect more from a country with bountiful natural assets and brand appeal. The poverty rate is a ratio of the number of people in a given age group whose income falls below the poverty line, taken as half the median household income of the total population. And you can get this at the www.oecd.org. Income inequality is measured primarily by the Gini coefficient and how equally income is distributed across a population, among other indicators. Let's take one industry as an example to focus on the levels of inequality in our society. Our tourism sector earned US $3.64 million in 2019. More than 160,000 Jamaicans worked in tourism in 2019. This sector accounts for almost 31.5% of our gross domestic product GDP. Yet many workers at some of our island's most prominent resorts live in substandard, subpar, below what you really should be doing for people, homes, on captured lands within deep rural communities. Furthermore, most are employed on low-wage contracts. Furthermore, most are employed on low-wage contracts. I'm going to read that again. Furthermore, most are employed on low-wage contracts without the assurances of permanence, statutory benefits, or a retirement pension. And even that is another thing to discuss. Taxi drivers in New York and London speak of enjoying a Jamaican vacation. But the equivalent taxi driver in Jamaica has very little hope of experiencing the same luxury at a Jamaican hotel or anywhere else. In an industry in which the average room rate is internationally competitive at US $300 or $45,000 per night, and there are people who are not even earning that per month, labor as a percentage of the operating cost may be less than 5%. Furthermore, many large hotels operating in Jamaica are offered tax incentives by the government. However, their profits may be repatriated offshore through management fees and sales commissions for tax purposes. So essentially, after the initial capital investment, their long-term contribution tax-wise may only be paying wages for labor. Don't get me wrong, and I'm just reading the article, guys. Investment in our tourism product is welcomed, but our objective in the best interest of national development is for our workers to share in the prosperity and growth of the industry in a more equitable way. As I said before, no matter how gifted, talented, and brilliant a human being is, you don't have superhuman powers and strength or the supernatural ability unless God imparts his power upon you to do certain things, for you to be turning water into wine and making blood out of stone or something of the sort, or raising the dead and parting the Red Sea. In other words, no matter how, as humans, there are certain natural innate abilities that God would have given us. It's just for us to harness it, to hone it, and to improve on it, so that we can become experts. But even then, you are not God. You are not a deity. You're finite, you're frail, you're fallible. And with by that token, you should not, the disparity in terms of the wealth should not be like a gulf between the rich and the poor, where there's no crossing over at all. And this is because of ego, pride, greed, and arrogance. A man or a woman thinks, no, you're not supposed to be here. I am the only one that's supposed to be here in terms of wealth, so that I can control you, so that you bow down to me. And even if I say, this section of the shirt is white, you believe, because you don't want to disappoint me and to lose out the little tricklings that I give you when you do my bidding. So it says, don't get me wrong, investment in our tourism product is welcomed, but our objective in the best interest of national development is for our workers to share in the prosperity and growth of the industry in a more equitable way. After all, the ordinary workers' tax dollars fund the Ministry of Tourism to promote business for these hotels. How can we fix it is a question asked. The policy we need to pursue is a tax system in which all pay their fair share. For example, France ensures large transnational businesses pay what is due. Recently, McDonald's France and its related companies agreed to pay over US $1.2 billion to French authorities to settle a case in which the fast food giant was accused of years of tax evasion. Additionally, Apple settled with France to pay US $571 million for backdated tax. Our collective willpower must encourage competition in our marketplace to avoid the creation of monopolies. That is one of them. Establish a livable minimum wage. Establish a Our collective willpower must encourage competition in our marketplace to avoid the creation of monopolies. Establish a livable minimum wage with a graduating scale. Give improved access to loan capital at affordable rates for young entrepreneurs, and implement universal equal access to a quality education for all. While there is no magic wand, the truth is there can be practical rebalancing of power, human creativity, and cooperation between government, owners of capital, and civil society that can move Jamaica toward a fairer and efficient system to significantly narrow the gap between the rich and the poor over time. Let's start now. And this is the article that I'm reading. As I said, I remember years ago, before COVID would have even entered the world, a former minister said, boy, the people earning, he had quoted the yearly figure, but when you work it out monthly, it would have been about $500,000 per month that they're barely scraping. And there are people, experts today, skilled people, people with degrees, trained, seasoned, that are earning less than that amount of money. So they're decomposed, they're dead, because if the 500 so many years ago scraping, these people are decomposed. We need a fairer system to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. All right, guys, you know what to do with TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe, give me one of those lines, and you can follow me on Instagram. Have a good one.